All right, and we're live. Um, so, welcome everybody. This is a panel discussion called "How to Make a Living as a Musician," featuring two Portland-based artists, Farnell Newton and Kevin Simon. I'll be the moderator. My name is Jonas Angelette. I'm the community programs manager at Portland Center Stage, uh, and an artist myself. But we're all in conversation about the different ways you can make a living as a musician, from music licensing to scoring films to live gigs, and everything in between. So, um, yeah, we'll just kind of go through intros, go left to right, I guess. So, Kevin, if you want to jump in.
All right. My name is Kevin J. Simon. I am a multi instrumentalist, composer, producer based in Los Angeles. I primarily make a living through music for media. So that includes music for commercials, television, and film. I also do quite a bit of music supervision with various brands and agencies, just kind of guiding the musical process, giving some ideas, and oftentimes doing a little bit of problem solving. And then I would say about 20% of the time I make records for listening's sake. So anything from current pop, rap, to nostalgia based music, like classic R&B, Motown-ish, whatever, jazz, Latin jazz. I'm a music school kid, was brought up traditionally, started playing piano when I was 5, evolved into other instruments. And then now I'm kind of like, playing the computer as the main instrument, but still, touching everything. So the music that I make is more often than not a hybrid of both, like synthesis, um, found sounds, and then like organic instruments, organic if you will. Yeah, but that's me.
Cool.
Definitely. Well, I'm Farnell Newton. I'm a trumpeter, producer, composer. Uh, I, I mean, I've kind of done a little bit of everything. Former professor at Portland State University. Uh, Toured the world with a bunch of different artists, from Jill Scott to Bootsy Collins, and worked with network television, performing on shows and such. The last, I would say, 5 years, I've been working at Marmoset Music in the A&R department, and in charge of Infinite Companion record label, their streaming and distribution of music on through DSPs, through Spotify and Tidal and Apple Music and such. Um, a lot of times you can find me performing somewhere with a horn or collaborating with musicians. And I also co-own a company called Formation Sound, which is custom music with soul. And then I think my joy project is just making lo-fi hip hop ambient chill music for people to listen to. I've seen a lot of success from that, and so I wear a lot of hats. A father of 5, and I just stay busy.
No
Actually,
rest for my boy.
exactly. That's exactly. I'll be in LA because my daughter is going to school at Cal State Northridge for art design and track and field, and I stay busy. I'm one of the most busiest people, and I also started this social media group back in the day called Jam of the Week that has over 70,000 musicians around the world, and musicians from every band, from Snarky Puppy, Beyonce, Prince, Bruno Mars, and everyone. So yeah, I wear all the hats.
Yeah, it's got quite the range of options for the both of you. So that's pretty amazing. Um, I think one thing, I mean, we can just kind of run the gamut of things that you all touched on, but I know, Kevin, something I've been interested in, and I hear a lot about because watching movies and TV, you see the music supervision credits, but I've never been 100% clear on how that role plays out. Like, can you talk a little bit about like how you got into that and what that entails?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that music supervision has been one of the most recent hats I've started to wear as of I guess 3 years ago or so. And yeah, music supervision is quite elusive because it can mean so many different things. Like the role is forever changing and evolving. Um, my first like real experience as a music supervisor was on a film that oddly enough I was also composing. So it actually ended up being like quite the workload. But as the music supervisor for the film that or the films that I have worked on, I'm currently working on a horror film as well, is like I'm working as like almost um like the top liaison of everything that's music related for the film. So, I'm sourcing the licenses that we pick, right? So, you get the film, it's a blank canvas. The director has some idea of what they want things to sound like, but I'm actually sourcing the music, finding the artist, dropping it in, making sure it works, going back and forth with the director, seeing that we have the right vibe. And then from there, once it's the right vibe, the other step is like going through and making sure it's easily cleared, making sure it's cleared properly. Everybody's getting their back end royalties and their credits and whatnot. So on the film side is kind of a lot like how it is on the TV side. For the ad side, my music supervision roles are sort of in like that the initial music talks, right? So we'll be with Google or Lumify or Apple or whoever, and then we're in like a Zoom call sort of like this, except there's like way more people, right? It's like 10 people. Please mute your mic when you're not talking type thing. And then the client's like, hey, here's our spot. Here's who we want to appeal to. How do we do that musically? So then, you're taking into account like, all right. So we're talking about people from this age to this age. You think about what was the most memorable music, like what were the big hit records at the times that you would remember the most, right? For a lot of us, I feel like that sweet spot is like from like I don't know, maybe 14 to like 25. Like you're really coming into your own as a person and your personality, going through all the emotions. And so some of those records just really stick out more so than they would anything before you were a preteen or teenager or after, once you have tons of bills and kids to run after and businesses to run, right? So we hone in on like what is the most effective piece of music for this audience. Then we go through like, hey, can we afford to license something? Is it worth licensing something? Will this license serve the picture? Like, because that's the other thing too, is like the biggest conversation, and you only kind of get to know this once you're working with film, and I'm sure Farnell will agree because he's doing everything. But it's like you got to serve the picture, right? It's one thing to make a record for listening's sake. A lot of us know how to do that, like, yo, just make a good sounding record, right? Or even how to play in a section, like tune it up, watch your volume, make sure you're sliding in to where you're supposed to slide in. So it's kind of almost that same sort of idea, but then locking it to more of a problem solving mechanism, right? Like the blank canvas of a picture is like a problem to be solved. So, how do we serve this picture? Like, is this too fast and frenetic for the way the cuts are working? Is it too sleepy? Is it too like many notes? Is it like so like musical that it's crowding the voiceover? So those are the considerations that I would make in the music supervision role for advertising, because it's a little bit more nuanced than like, a movie, to where it's like, hey, you could let it play. No one's going to be talking. Like the music's going to carry the spot. A lot of times the music doesn't get to carry the spot in advertising because there's a lot of talking, a lot of talking.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's more insight than I've heard in a while. It's always curious, how it works for film and commercials.
Yeah, man.
I used to, I used to know some folks on a marketing team in a tech company that had like a budget for how to. What was it? It was like they had a monthly budget to license songs, and they just would like gather Spotify playlists and then check in with the artists, and uh, they would talk about like how they would offer 3-month contracts to somebody to kind of run as many streams of this song as possible. So I mean, there was like not necessarily music supervision role, but it was like someone who was always kind of scanning for music
Yeah,
that would work in a
still
podcast.
music supervisor though, in a sense, right? Like it,
Yeah.
it goes to show, like it can literally mean anything depending on what medium you're supervising. So
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. And then Farnell, do you have any? I mean, sounds like
I mean,
you have like many times like that.
I mean, as Kevin was saying, like, the music help tells the story. If I've there's been some examples where, you could go online or YouTube and they'll play examples of like a sad section and they'll replace the music with happy music. And it totally changes the whole film and what you're trying to convey in the story. But so it's very important to have the right music uh, that has the pulse, right beat, right? Is it major? Is it minor? Is it too dark? Is it a sad part in the story that needs to be really emphasized? So the music helps tells the story, even though a lot of times it's one of the last thing that gets chosen when you're dealing with ad world and commercials and such. But it's very important. It helps tells that story from start to end. And that's the great thing about music is you're always telling a story, no matter what. That's that. And all of my music, it has a story to go with every song I've created, no matter if I was in a happy mood, joyous mood, or I was in a dark place, or I was I was traveling a lot and looking forward to life and gigs and such. I might make a upbeat funky song or such. It all just depends on the music.
Yeah, no, that's I'm curious too. When did you all make the leap to like an interest in licensing or kind of scoring, not third party necessarily, but like other people's work versus um, your own? Not that you stopped doing your own, but like when you
Yeah.
started to decide to work with clients, I guess.
Well, for me, for the most part, it was I was gone on tour from like, I mean, I was home, but I was on the road probably 70% to 80% of the time
ooh,
between Jill Scott and Bootsy Collins from like 2013 to like the end of 2015, uh, and my father-in-law got sick, and my wife was like, "Hey, I need you to be more home." And of me being a family man, I'm like, "Of course." So I was looking back, and I was like, "Okay, if I'm going to stay in Portland, I need to find what am I going to do to keep me here." I did not want to go back to a public, state-funded university where students struggle just to get a couple dollars to stay in school, and you have to fight for everything. And I didn't want to work in. I was doing music engraving for one of the world's biggest Catholic companies before um, I was on tour. So I was looking at the various different options, and I was already an artist on Marmoset back in 2013. And actually, one of my former students has been working at Marmoset almost since the very beginning, Eric Norby. And I called them up and I was like, Eric, I said, "What's happening over in Marmoset?" And he was like, "Yo, we got a couple positions." So I applied, and I've been working at Marmoset since 2017. And at the time, I was just making music just to make music. I didn't really understand, like, writing music for commercial and TV or for business branding and such. Uh, and just over the years, I've learned so much about that from working with Marmoset and other uh, various different organizations and agencies and such. And yeah, and I'm still learning, but that's my bread and butter right now. Creating music for Marmoset, and with my business, creating music with other agencies around the country, and they're all different. Like Marmoset is more. Most of my placements are from commercials and ads with businesses, and then a lot of my other stuff with other agencies is for TV and film, or for uh, and I'll do some music supervision for once in a while, or I'll help um, some independent filmmakers put together music and such, and which is kind of like my little hobby, to be a music supervisor. But I usually like making the music more than anything.
I feel you on that, man. I'd rather make the noise than sort it out, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, so I have kind of a similar situation. Like it really all started um, for me, like in college. I was studying jazz, University of North Texas, and then was just like, man, like I was already gigging, right? Like I had like, you know, my little whatever, you know, here and there, like, you know, um, and I was just concerned, like, hey, like, how am I gonna like really get to the top level? And I sort of felt like, you know, with playing, you can only be in one place at one time, right? You pack it up, you go on the road. The beautiful thing about music, especially like when it gets licensed, is it's like it grows its own legs and can just like run all around the globe for you while you sleep. So I read this book written by an ad legend, Wendell Haynes. Have you ever heard of him, Farnell? Wendell Haynes?
Uh-uh.
So he's a big New York cat. He owns a company called Volition Sound, but he wrote this book. It was called 30 for 30. I read that when I was like 22. And then I just like jotted down some of the names in the book. And then when I moved from Denton to Dallas, which is like just 45 minutes down the street, I just started hitting up all the ad agencies. Like I would rip YouTube commercials and then just recompose them in my spare time. And then like I was just hitting up these ad agencies, just being like, "Yo, give me a chance, give me a chance, give me a chance," and everybody was like, "No, no, no, no," because like whenever they had the big budget for anything for broadcast, they were calling people in New York, and in LA, and sometimes Chicago. Finally, I hit up this company called Publicis in Dallas. I mean, I had friends that worked there too, but they had a situation where they ran out of money and couldn't afford to get like the proper music for this power bar spot. So I ended up getting that, and it was so good that they gave me another. Then, you know, things kind of cooled down. I went on the European tour, and then my dog died. I mean, you know, not as impactful as Farnell's, you know, loss when he was on tour, but you know, my dog died, and I was like, oh, all right, let's pack it all up and move to New York and really take the gamble. Moved up there with like, you know, just a little bit of change in the boy's pocket, you know what I mean? And then just like hit the pavement that summer, and then I finally found some people after a couple of months of being there who were willing to like, you know, take risk on me like composing. And then from there, you know, one spot leads to the other, keeps going, and now it's like 16 years in the game, feeling almost like a spot veteran. You know, I'm running my own little company, working directly with brands and agencies. I'm a frequent composer for Netflix, like doing a bunch of theme songs and replacement tracks and even trailers and whatnot. So you know, it was a gradual, long, slow slink of a process, but you know, perseverance will get you anywhere.
Yeah, no, I love the hustle of both your stories. Like the which is something like I work with a bunch of music producers here in town. I run a producer showcase called The Beat Happening, where it's just kind of like focused on producers of all ages, beat makers, musicians, stuff like that. But a lot of them are like everything is a mystery to them in terms of like how to make money at it. They'll just uh, you know, they'll make a beat and put it on Bandcamp, and then that's it. That's the end of the promotional run for it. And like teaching them and talking to them about ways to like make a living. And like sometimes you accidentally are a music supervisor and you don't even know that's the title for it. Like you know, your friend needs a beat for a podcast intro or something, and he doesn't work for a company, but you're doing that and you're kind of scoring these independent projects, but it all counts as a resume. um, and it's something I'm always trying to encourage people to be like, yeah, you don't always need rappers or vocalists on your stuff. Like you can find homes for a lot of your work
Yeah, definitely.
through those.
That's so true.
I'm constantly telling, you know, when I really dive was like at Marmoset for a while, and I was like, wait. I started hitting up all the homies and everything, and I'm like, dude, I know you got hundreds of beats sitting around on a hard drive, you know, like don't let the music just, I say like no tracks gets left behind, like, I'm always creating and I'm always putting music in the system, because you never know. It's usually those songs that you didn't really think much about that can earn you some great money throughout the
That's
year.
true too. It's
So
always the sleepers. You're like, what? Okay.
always,
You're right.
always. And then that song you done put in, like
Yeah.
40 to 80 hours, you're like, you didn't see anything. So, and but it just lets people know. I'm constantly telling, you know this, Joan. It's just constantly telling musicians and producers and stuff, and I'm like, hey, there is a ton of content these days. If you think about it, every business has to clear music for their social media, no matter if it's Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. They have to clear the music. And now with TV shows and film, on a TV show, there's probably over 30 different song placements in an episode. And mind you, if that's like a syndicated show, they're probably doing 24 episodes, and that's hundreds and hundreds of songs needed a season. So there's so many ways that you can succeed without having to be like hitting the payments to do gigs or travel or other things. You could have success from the comfort of your home.
Yeah, and then just to echo what Farnell said is like, yeah, there's never been as much new media ever in existence as there is now, right? Remember, like it used to be like, all right, you either get some radio play, you either get a movie, or you get a TV show or commercials. Now you got like podcasts, you got the whole YouTuber generation who's like just doing daily vlogs and blogs. Like that stuff has to get cleared, right? Then you have TikTok, you got Instagram, like all the social media shorts and stuff. And like that's the thing is like, Nike and Adidas and Facebook, like they're seriously grabbing up a ton of license for like little 6-second joints, and this used to never be a thing. Like, so new media has, I don't know, like probably quadrupled at least, because there's so much need for music. And like Farnell said too, is like, yo, these instrumentals, they go more than the stuff with the vocals. Like if you have something with the vocals on it, like typically it lures the licensor in and they're like, yes, this is great. Now mute the whole verse. You know what I mean? Like it's like, okay, great.
So true. Definitely. Yeah. It's pretty crazy and amazing, to be able, for me, it's always about, trying to give people the tools and the resources. So then, they don't have to stress out about like, they're trying to go on tour or they're trying to do a record. I mean, nowadays it's almost crazy to do a record. Before, you'll spend 5, 10, 15, $20,000 on a studio and a project, you know, recording, musicians, mixing, mastering, duplication, PR, the whole nine. And now it's like you can literally, spend less time, less effort to put music together with collaborating with key people and being able to win, compared to before, because it's hard to with streaming the way it is and such, it's hard to justify spending that type of money uh, in certain ways. So like for me, I'll make some lo-fi music that's great, because during the pandemic, background music and also ambient music was very therapeutic for people, from piano music and chill hop and chill beats and such, to the point where it's like we've seen the market of that go crazy as well with streaming, or finding that niche in your streaming and putting out those songs and finding success in streaming, where a lot of people are having hard times to do so. So it's like you got to wear all the hats, composing. I mean, one time I remember at Marmoset, we had, I think it might have been like Chiquita Banana was like, we need someone to write out some music for us of our theme songs, our old and our new theme songs. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, let me go and write that out real quick. And that's a job of being able to compose
Yeah,
music and write music.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then it's like, I might need to help a creative put music to a film, or I might, I mean, it's so many different hats to gigging. I was just at a gig last night but then I'm here working my day job with Marmoset, but I'm also creating music and projects and such. And then it's like, Kevin might be like, yo, I got a song, man. My regular cat, Jay Jennings isn't available. Can you
Shout out to
record?
Jay. Yeah.
Shout out to Jay Jennings. Now I see where the connection with University of Texas, with Mike Moz and all of those cats
Yeah.
and such. But it's just like the collaboration. Me and you, Jonas, have even collaborated and released songs together and projects. And it's just like the constant collaboration, constant being adaptable and versatile to take on different projects is like the way to survive as a musician these days.
Yeah, and then just to chime in, I mean, Farnell's dropping all these gems, but like the adaptability thing, oh man, like let this pandemic situation be a lesson to all of us. Like, cause back in like maybe 2018, I was kind of preaching that to some of my friends. Like, I'm just like, hey man, like you're a great horn player, you're a great strings player, you're blah blah blah. Like I could use you. Like, could you just go and get like a setup? It doesn't have to be that crazy. I'll walk you through it. Like all you gotta do is just be able to give me dry stems and we can make magic together. And then like the pandemic hit, and for those people who were already set up like that, it was a little bit of a smoother transition because that's how me and Jay, like we used to work all the time. Like he would have to come over here, we'd take a couple of hours out of the day, track these horns, and then like blah blah blah. But now it's like, hey, I can send him the idea or sing something over the phone or whatever, and he can record it at his house and then send it to me. So while he's doing that, I could be moving on to something else. He doesn't have to be getting in the whip, showing up physically. He doesn't even have to get dressed, right? You know what I mean? You could just sit there, knock it out, and then that's a gig right there. A gig at home, a solid
Yeah.
gig.
Yeah. That's me in my pajamas.
Yo, but you're a warrior, Farnell, because like, look, dude, I've let some of my chops deteriorate. There's nothing like being on the bandstand and like really getting it in. So I just admire cats like you who are just like, yo, I'm just gonna keep running, like,
Yeah.
just an Energizer bunny over there, man. Like that's wild.
Man. That's the thing, wearing those hats, man, and providing. I'm like,
Yeah.
I got 2 kids in college. I'm like,
Woo, woo.
it's like I stay busy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
only got one kid and one on the way. He just started kindergarten, so I don't even know about that college level hustle.
Yeah.
That's some serious bills right there. That's like, look, let's go ahead and power up the computer and get this money.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Sending emails on the gig, you know what I mean?
Hey.
Supervising in between solos.
Hey, that's how it is.
yeah. And something that you mentioned, Farnell, too, like during the pandemic, like I had friends who would tell me that they started listening to music to like do yoga to, or to like just to calm down to, like in the midst of all the protests in Portland. And I was just like, I mean, it was funny because I was like, I'm not thankful for the pandemic, but to be told that I'm just stuck at home in my studio for months at a time, I was like, I could make a million songs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Definitely.
it led to a lot of collaborations. Like I know not everybody, some people are kind of burnt out from the pandemic, but like some people saw it as an opportunity to kind of like build their catalog and kind of explore things, teach themselves something about it. So
Yeah.
it's been interesting to see how people adapted,
Yeah.
and the grinds that emerged.
I did the same thing that Kevin was talking about. Like I tapped all the homies up and my trombone player and everybody, and I was like, yo, get you a Focusrite, Scarlett, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
get you a microphone. Like we gotta stay busy because in the beginning of the pandemic, because I kind of locked down the week before officially everyone would stay at home, and I was twiddling my thumbs, and I was like, because I was supposed to be like on tour, I was supposed to be like just gone. Like the whole that summer, I was looking forward to. I was like, yo, this is gonna be a nice summer. I'm gonna be on the road. And March, I was at home, like literally, like twiddling my thumbs, like I can't go nowhere. Like my anxiety was like, depression was about to start kicking. And I said, what can I do so I don't fall into that dark place? And I said, well, I've been wanting to make sample packs for a while. Let me just start. And I just started to record building stacks of stuff. And I hit up I think I reached out to Lander, and Lander was like, "Yo, we love you. We already know who you are and everything. Like, let's do it." And I put out multiple packs with them for horns, for lo-fi, for beats, and everything. And it really not just helped me stay creative and busy at a time where I couldn't do anything. It also helped, like my team members and such. I'll hit my trombone player. Yo, I need 25 loops, or I hit a keyboard player. I need 100 loops, or I hit like my man Jamal Nichols from Gregory Porter in St. Louis, and I was like, yo, what are you up to? I know you're not gigging, so send me 25 loops of you playing bass. Who's an amazing electric and upright bass player. And I was like, send them over. And then we're like, cool. Like, I just got everybody broke off with some money. And then it's like, what's the next pack? What's the next project? Until, I can start gigging and thinking about those things again. And it helped me also double down in my music licensing and really formulate the industry and the structures and songs and the know-how, and to elevate myself, and my production level. So now I'm more of an introvert. I'm usually like the person that's out kicking it, hanging out, schmoozing and stuff. Now I'm like, man, I want to go back to the house, watch a show with the kids, and then get back on the computer.
Yeah. But yo, like the sample pack hustle, yeah, like it's so geared to anybody who's a master of their instrument. So many guys in my, I guess musical ecosystem, especially coming up, from where I'm from, are absolute masters of their one instrument, and also like great at others. But like if you've put in like all those hours to become a top tier player, like you could benefit so greatly from just lending your sound and your ideas to other producers who are looking for found sounds, right? Yeah, so that's a hustle that I guess is still a little untapped, right, for like all these like virtuosic musicians. It's like, man, like that's a cool hustle.
Yeah, there's not too much of a departure from that, but something that you touched on, Kevin, about like all the different types of media that are out there to kind of for those things to reach. Like part of some of the, I mean, I'm not an educator, but like a lot of the people that I work with are like, they'll post something on Instagram or something, and then it'll get a copyright strike against it because they did it in the video and not understanding the process of like submitting music to an aggregator that will then have that music available so you can tag it properly. And like even walking through teaching people about that process, like getting your music out there to the point that people can choose it if they're trying to source something for a video, even if they don't know who you are. But like, they'll listen through the little samples and tag you in a video, and you have like zero connection to somebody in China playing your music. But
yeah,
it's really interesting to like the breadth of all these different ways you can get your sound to people, whether it's through stems or songs.
Yeah. I mean, that was the important thing about the pandemic for me also, was that I was able to collaborate with more artists, working with lo-fi hip hop artists. I was working with kids who literally just graduated high school and was at Berkeley School of Music or some small school, who might be from India or Italy or from Boston or Baltimore, Maryland. And we're out here collaborating, making music together and doing pretty well on streaming. And because of that, I've had a ton of people reach out to me. Hey, I love your song. This song really helped me through some tough times and such, because it's meant to just be relaxed, listen to. I put it on with the kids when they're just hanging out and playing, just kind of to chill and to relax. And I feel like music really helped people during the pandemic find peace. And I mean, you could look at all of the stats and data, like how much people was listening to music, listening to podcasts. I mean, what would we have done without music during that time? It was it was some rough stuff, man, happening during the pandemic, and I'm just happy, music was there to kind of save a lot of us,
Yeah, and what is it that they said too? Was that like that was the one thing that I guess primarily Americans refused to give up was entertainment. I mean, I guess that's obvious, like since you're stuck at home, but still, it's like as people, were getting laid off from their jobs, wondering where their next few dollars were coming from, they were still very willing to spend it on the things that brought them joy, like
Oh
music
yeah.
and
I
movies.
mean, yeah, and these TV companies, man, they figured it out real quick. Because I remember when Tiger Tiger King and these key shows was coming out, that literally like the streaming went through the roofs because guess what? We were all home
And
at the
that's all we
same
were talking
time.
about, right? Yeah,
That
was what
was
we were watching.
Yeah, I even
Like we
remember
weren't traveling.
there was some rappers that made a whole Tiger King EP, and I was like, we need
yeah.
something else to do.
TV shows, social media challenges, sourdough bread making, like all of that stuff literally kept a lot of people from like falling into those hard places. But that entertainment and that all of that content out there helped a lot of us get through this.
Yeah.
I was worried in the beginning of the pandemic. I was like, man, how is this going to affect the licensing industry? This is going to be crazy. Like, you can't be on there putting out Toyota ads during a pandemic. Like, who's buying cars right now? We're struggling. Yeah. But now it seems like it's like doubled down and it's taking off.
Yeah, everyone's back outside.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that's like in terms of the youth, though. I mean, not necessarily your kids, but like, is there stuff that you've had to tell younger folks, younger musicians, about like how to make a living post pandemic with their music, or I mean, I guess during the pandemic too, but just the kind of lessons that you would tell an up and coming musician now who had to like I met somebody who like started and finished college online because of the pandemic, which was wild
wow.
to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
so
it
like,
was. I would say it was a time like pandemic was a couple things was happening. There were people who took that time to really double down and learn new things, languages, go to school, go to college, learn how to mix and master, learn how to do various different online schooling, coding, free code camp. Like free code camp was like blowing up and such. But at the same time, as a lot of people was like, they were like, let's take your $1,200 from the government and put it in and invest it. But at the same time, you had people, and it was okay for them to just like make it by. It was just like taking that time, taking the space to be like, hey, I'm not going to do anything right now. I'm just going to make it through this pandemic and try to make it a sane person and such. So it was like a couple different things happening. But I've been working with young people forever since I was in college, and I'm just always trying to really just tell them like, don't be afraid to put in a work, that you literally could be successful in anything and everything you do. I'm like Mr. Side Hustle King. Like, this is the first time I think my side hustle has been music and my job has been music. I'm not making bracelets. I'm not doing anything web design. I'm just doing that. But I tell people, like, if you put in that time, put in all those hours, you're going to be successful in no matter what you do. But you can't be afraid to do the hard work. I mean, especially in licensing, there is, I just came up, well, I didn't come up, but I just thought about it talking to my wife and my business partner, Hunter Love. And I was saying that there is no instant gratification in music, only from the consumer who's listening. Every other part of the music industry, it takes time, it takes hard work, it takes learning, figuring it out, collaboration and such. There is no instant gratification. So you could figure it out and be successful, but you gotta want to put in the time and effort. Hit up the Kevin J. Simons and be like, yo, what are you doing? Hit up the Jonas, the Farnells, the whoever, and pick their brain. That's what I did as a young jazz musician growing up in Philly, and as an undergrad in Ohio and living all over the country. I went to the old heads and was like, hey, how can I get great? Show up, practice, learn from them, talk to them, and put in the work. And I feel like I'm still putting in the work and feel like I'm just getting started still, even though I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, it's a long forever chase, because it's
Yeah.
still trying to run away from you. Because like with other new ways to do things, new ideas, new workarounds, it's like you're forever learning. But yeah, like Farnell said, it's like there's almost no shortcut other than like finding mentorship. That's the closest thing you'll get to a shortcut, because you're able to cipher all those years of knowledge from somebody. Like my career would not have been possible if it wasn't for my mentors. I should name them. Jeff Rosner, who's like that dude took me under his wing and showed me like the business aspects and pointed me in the right directions, and even just made the connections. Then a guy named Josh Brockhausen, who basically was like, hey, you make good music but it's not that good, like here's how we get it better. You know what I mean? So it's like getting that sort of attention and care is like a huge stepping stone too. So kudos to you guys, who you're obviously both mentors. I pride myself in being a mentor, but for anybody who may see this and who is trying to figure out how do I get to the next level, you got to find somebody, man. Like I don't know if you've ever like searched for anything or hunted anything down, but these people, they're all walking around with the knowledge and the connections that you need. And there's a big chance that they'll see a part of themselves in you and will reach out to help you. Because like the funny thing about having a mentor, and I wonder if you guys feel like this, is like your mentors who give you all this knowledge, you can't really pay it back. It's like, what am I going to do for you other than do well myself and then just pass it on? Like that's what I love about the whole like position of mentorship and that idea. It's like it's not an exchange. Basically, it's just pouring into this cup with the hopes that that cup will pour into another cup. You know what I mean? So it's like for everybody who makes it to the top of the ladder or whatever, it's your job to reach that hand back down and pull it up. So for anybody who's trying to find a way, come find me. I'm not easy to find, but if you find me, I'll give you some time.
Yeah, no, that's great. You guys both made me think. I remember the day that I realized, like, you hear about ASCAP and BMI in the music.
Mhm.
Rappers always drop that in there, but I was just like, I never knew what that was. And the day that somebody sat with me and we talked over PROs and like how to register and get your publishing and how to register as a writer and all those things, I was like, wow, I know so many musicians who just have zero idea what that
So
even
many
is.
high level
Zero.
musicians,
Zero.
high level,
Zero.
like
Yeah.
people who are playing on
Yeah.
important records. I'm like, oh, what's your PRO information? They're like, wait, what? And
Yeah.
it's like, no, dude, like that's because here's the thing too, is like, I didn't go to the most contemporary music school, but my school was just like, hey, here's how you play. This is how you analyze this. This is how you play that. This is how you read this. This is how you hear that. Like they show you everything except for like some of the stuff that's really gonna like affect your pockets and your earning. You know what I mean? Like had someone told me like initially like, hey, get your PROs sorted ASAP. Like, that was just something I like kind of came across myself as I was like coming into my first license. And then I was just like, oh wow, like I've had music on the radio and stuff like this, and I hadn't had this stuff hemmed up.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's like, you know, you going to University of North Texas. I went to Oberlin Conservatory of Music. These are like, some of the best schools in the country and such. And even though, like I said, I learned how to play and do all of these things, but that business aspect of it was not there. And I didn't learn that till later. I didn't know these things. And then when I was learning about it and starting to move on that knowledge, a lot of musicians around me was like, what is this? What are you talking about? What is that? And then I'm constantly having this discussion. I had a discussion with a drummer, And I was like, dude, I need your PRO information. I can't find it anywhere. And because that's part of one of my jobs too. A marmoset, I'm usually finding people's PRO. And he's like, oh, I don't have one right now. And I was like, wait, but you just recorded and collaborated with one of the biggest artists in the country, in the world. And where's your PRO at? He's like, oh, well, I'm about to get it back before the album comes out. And I'm like, you're constantly creating, like, cover your music. And even when you know this PRO stuff, it's still like stuff within that you don't know. You're like, okay, cool, I understand this, but how do I get my broadcast royalties? Or how do I get my performance royalties? If you're playing with this big artist and all of these world venues and tours, and they're playing one of your songs, you could collect money off of that every time you perform it in the stadium. Every time it's on the TV, you should be able to collect money. So, but these are things that's not taught, and that's why you got to find the people in the industry and the business. I've been very fortunate. I've always been that person. If I didn't know something, I went and tapped on doors. I'm like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do I get my horns to sound as crisp? I remember hitting up Kevin and was being like, yo, who's that on trumpet on your song? Man, this joint sounds dope. It's fat. It's like clean. And he's like, oh, it's Jay Jennings. And I'm like, oh, that's my homie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like that's great and wonderful. But what did you do to put on the plugins? Like, what did you do? Let me find out. You got to be able to be a go-getter as a musician and not let your don't be prideful. Like, figure it out, talk to them, treat them out to coffee. I'm about building genuine relationships. I'm like, yo, if I'm in your city, I'm taking you out to dinner, lunch, and we just kicking it first. And then later I might be like, hey, I want to figure out what you're doing, but we've already established a friendship and a connection. And then, like, let's start talking about ways of I could elevate my stuff to get to that level that this person is at.
Yeah, and like Farnell said, it's like everybody has like something that they're doing that the other person isn't. So it's like, even if it's someone who you think is like still kind of finding their way in their sound, like you could literally watch them do stuff. You'd be like, wait, what is that? How did you do that? What was this? I mean, even someone who's just been working in a DAW for a year, like that's my favorite thing about collaboration is like, just seeing like the different ways to do stuff, and then the results that they create. Because I don't know, man, like there's just so much knowledge, right? It's like, as much as we like try to strive to know everything about music and production and all this stuff, there's no way, right? We're always going to be like this coin size, like drop in a bucket. So yeah, like not having that fear, right? Because everybody knows we don't know everything. So it's like, why you gotta pretend like that? Just go out and just, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly,
right? Like, it's just like, man, just go and get the knowledge, man. Yeah, like that's a beautiful thing. And then the wonderful thing about that too, I'm sure Farnell will agree too, is it's inspiring too, like just to get that new information and new ideas. It's going to keep your workflow, evolving too. And that's the biggest thing that we all face too, right? It's like, how are we going to keep making new stuff if we're making stuff all the time? It's like, you got to input maybe even more than you output.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's wild too, because some of those things are like $50 for a lifetime subscription, and people act like, oh, I need to be signed to a label before I do this, and you're like, no, you don't. So
no,
it's
you
like,
don't.
it's like, yeah, things you got to learn, but it's like some people, it's just it's like an eternal quest to find.
It is. It's a marathon, man. Doing anything in the music industry is a marathon, and there's no like instant wins, and you might get some easy gratification once in a while, but it's then next thing you know, you feel like you've taken 4 steps back before you even grow more. And we're just constantly out here. That's the great thing about finding like-minded artists who are willing and down and want to collab and do things. And it's like, and if I don't know something, I can't know everything. So let me hit up somebody and try to collaborate with them that might have more understanding in that, and something I could learn and brush off on. I just finished doing some Latin trap and salsa stuff. But then when I can't speak Spanish. My wife's fluent, but I could find an artist that's fluent and speaks both English and Spanish who could collaborate and take my song to a bigger height and such. And then you're just like, okay, cool. Well, let's work out these splits. Let's put this out and let's see what we could do with it. And it's like you can't be afraid to also put out the music, because people are like, I don't know if people like my music. Like, there's people out there in every stages of life, and they're just looking for good music and finding songs to connect with. And I'm like, once you release that and just start putting out music, you're going to find more fans and more listeners and more streams and more love of your music. I mean, that's probably when I let go that mindset of everything being perfect. I felt like that's when I really was creating and letting music go. I mean, I'm just a jazz guy, and I'm like, I do well in streams, so I love it.
No one's just a jazz guy anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's true too. I mean, and all that's the great thing about like so-called jazz musicians. Like, we're everywhere. We're in all the bands. We're in all
hiding in the dark,
country, funk, soul, everything, pop. We're everywhere.
That is so true, man. Yeah, you're right. You look at any touring band, half of those dudes are jazz guys.
Yeah. Adaptability, being versatile and being adaptable in the styles of music and their main instruments.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so we'll as we wind down here, I just wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of shout out any projects you're working on, or where people can find you. And I'll post it in the video description once we get this up. But yeah, just if you guys want to talk about, Kevin, you want to start?
Yeah. I got quite a few things coming out. Normally I play the background, right? I'm producing stuff with my homeboy Seth Hirsch. Who else do I got coming out? This guy Nady G. Shout out to Marty. Shout out to 7 a.m. A bunch of different cats I'm working with. But I'm actually trying to holler at Farnell about getting a personal record released here soon under the Marmoset / Infinite Companion label. So, I mean, hopefully that'll be happening in a few months. I got to circle back on that, but I got the tune. Yeah. So, just keeping it moving, man. In here cooking every day, cooking on various things.
Definitely. I'm always, between Formation Sound, my business, doing music with my partner Hunter Love. I'm also doing the lo-fi hip hop with my label Lo-Fi Jazz Soul, which also doubles as a radio show on our jazz station here in Portland.
Oh, nice.
And right now, just really pushing that, because and helping other musicians find success in streaming and what else am I working on? I'm always working on some gigs. In Portland, you can always find me somewhere gigging, somewhere with Tyrone Hendricks and my homies. But usually that's about it right now. Between Marmoset, Formation Sounds, and Lo-Fi Jazz Soul, that's where I'm at. Or I'm hanging out with these kids and family, at the house.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said at the beginning, I'm a musician too. I go by Love Jones, LUVJONEZ, on all streaming platforms, and playing different gigs around the city and hosting a beat happening. So,
and a Marmoset artist.
Yeah.
Shout out to Marmoset.
Yeah, all three of us.
Yes, shout out to Marmoset, and also to the homie Janae for
she's incredible.
Reaching out. Janae, Janae reached out to me about doing this. So shout out to Love Jones and Janae. So
cool. Yes, so we'll wrap it up, and thank you all for joining and sharing your knowledge and your histories with us.
Yo, it was great chatting with you both, man. You guys are gonna keep hearing from me.
Appreciate y'all. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
You guys have a good one.
Peace.
Peace.